such sights to show you.
You are all going to die tonight.
This is bad comedy.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the season finale of Geek showing season 4. Guy is on a brief sabbatical. I think I finally drove him fucking insane. So, joining me for tonight's final episode is the mouth of the South Derbyshire, Mr. Jimmy Lee Clifford, or looking today more like the Wish.com Eddie Munson. So, how are you, honey?
Well, how am I? I have that. If anybody can see it, it says I'm a ray of fucking sunshine, as always.
Yes.
So
Very, very true. Very, very true. Good to see you're in good spirits.
I always am.
But moving quickly on with tonight's episode, we're going to go straight into the shout outs. Sam Pickens this week because you're literally the only person who commented this week. Guys, you're slacking. You're slacking. I thought last week's episode with Tony appearing on the show would have we'd have billions of comments, but no, we got just the one. It's okay. It's okay. Carry the fuck on. Carry the fuck on. No pun intended there. But yes, you said, hello, this should be fun considering when this is read out. Yeah. Yes, I was the first to watch and add a comment that I forgot to add to due to scheduling. Please wait for a live response coming to Calico very soon. So go on then. What did you have to say about the
I was called up on the last minute comment. This was an accident initially, and it was a consequence of my executive dysfunction. And then I noticed a pattern, and I realized I could use this pattern to pause the video at certain key intervals, and so it became a thing. And I thought you might not notice, but of course I've been caught out. So yeah, and the first view last week was I just put the hello, meant to edit and add to that because it was a good episode to carry on with Tony. Yeah, and then executive dysfunction hit again, and I forgot to add to it.
Right. Well, nice to see Tony on the show. Unsure about sober Guy. Well, Guy,
Yes.
you can drop comments on this one, Guy, because you didn't appear in this one, so you got to watch it back.
So you will have to wait till next season.
Yes, you're gonna have to wait until mid-October, I think, is when we're due back, right before Halloween.
That'll be fun.
Season, a certain the horned bitch may make a return on season 5. It's been a while. It's been good 10, 11 episodes since that bitch showed her face. May let Violet out the box.
What is she doing?
She's in the underworld. She's doing her thing. She's torturing people as only she knows how to. Mostly by singing and taking her mask off, but you know. Anyway, loved Carry On Doctor and Abroad. Remember watching as a kid around my grandparents. And like I said, I'm kind of slightly older than you. So my parents watched a lot of the Carry On films, and that's where I watched a lot of them. Great episode. Signing off to sign on this episode.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But that is it for the shout outs.
Very quick.
Now, time to ask that question that I haven't even got a good joke for this week's lead-in. So yeah, time to ask her what you
since God created everything and then manufactured television.
God didn't create everything.
No, he didn't create everything.
We're the sneeze of a higher being, and we're just waiting for the tissue to come up and catch us.
Yes, since God created the sneeze that is us, that he wanted just for our, his entertainment, create television.
You know where that reference comes from? Answers in the comments. Because that was a reference, believe it or not. But yeah, we'll go with that. Fuck it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Jimmy Lee Clifford, what you been watching, mate?
What I've been watching. Well, the scheduling opened up because I was watching The Boys, and that finished, as we all
Yeah,
know. No spoilers, but that ended.
in the background. But yes, we're not going to do any spoilers on the end of season 4
That ended.
just yet. Purely for the simple fact is, we said last week and the week before,
Yeah.
both me and Guy said we want to do a Boys Revisited, which we will probably do right before season 5 comes out as sort of like a refresher to like get you ready for season 5, kind of like we did with the season 4. Like right before that came out, we did the 3 seasons so far. So, which I do believe you joined us for that one. Yeah.
So it looks like I'm scheduled in for a future episode, folks.
If it isn't technical malfunctions around it, it's fucking wardrobe malfunctions. I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Well, more gentlemen that watch this show, because we all know why, don't we?
Then again, we might get more views. I don't know.
Anyway, yeah, for me, no, sorry, go on, Karen. What have you been watching?
I watched. So what? Yeah, The Boys. I
Didn't
watched
get
The
there.
Boys. That with that ending. So my schedule for TV then opened up on the Thursday. I've watched what we're going to talk about to refresh my memory, the meat of the matter, as it were, so refreshing. And other than that, not much, but I did manage to schedule in 2 episodes of them there, Winchester Boys, which is
Boy, boy.
there you go. Now it makes sense because in episode 2, my wonderfully absolute favorite of all favorites that I hate and have nightmares over, little nightmarish creature turns up, the Wendigo. Thank you. Until dawn.
Love that game. We will maybe cover that at some point because we've still got the console wars thing that me and Guy kind of started is ongoing. We haven't come up with anything new, but we're at that weird little tipping point where the new generation of consoles is just starting to really pick up steam and get some really good games coming out on it. Where I'm still like PS4 and Xbox One. So maybe when the gap has been bridged between those a little bit more, there's no more PS4 or Xbox One games coming out. Maybe we'll cover the PS4 and whatnot generation. Maybe.
I'd like to come back for that one if possible, especially with the Until Dawn. Like I say, that thing kept me. You can ask my lovely Raven Rose. That thing actually got me to wake up from nightmares, which, yeah, it was a bit of a trip, that one. But
yeah, so anything else you've been watching?
Other than the usual child's television, and I obviously we have started doing documentaries with him, mostly to do with sea life and such. But and I don't know the names to them, but there are some wonderful ones. We love David Attenborough. I love Morgan Freeman's voiceovers for him. So yeah. Other than that, it's like at the moment, X-Men 97's gone, Boys is gone, Gen V's gone. My scheduling opened up, so I'm trying to fill that, and I've got to fill that. The other thing I'm going to try and watch is Cobra Kai.
See, in the world of geekdom at the minute, we're kind of at that dry period that happens around Comic-Con because it's that weird little phenomena of Comic-Con where everything is just getting to a real head and seasons are wrapping up so they can start hyping up the new stuff at Comic-Con. But then we get a couple of months where it's nothing. It's
nothing, yeah.
We have to rely on
keeping it all quiet so they can release it at Comic-Con.
I think it's quite clever though, because they know that the true geeks, the true hardcore geeks that go to Comic-Con every year without fail. I try, it's expensive, but I think the studios and everything know that if they make the announcements and everything all exclusive at Comic-Con, and then you've got that waiting period. It builds the suspense. It gives enough time for the footage from Comic-Con, the panels and the reveals, and look at the stuff we've seen. Look at the stuff we've seen.
The recent Robert Downey Jr. news.
That. They got to wait for that to trickle out there for everyone to get all hyped up for it. So it's clever what they do. They release it at Comic-Con. They give it until about September, early October, and then stuff starts coming out. We start getting the big Christmas movies for that year coming out. Not when I say Christmas movies, I mean the films that are going to be out at Christmas, not necessarily a film about Christmas.
Yeah.
Unlike Die Hard, which is a Christmas film. Fuck you, guy.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, as for what I've been watching this week, well, I had my daughter here for a week, so we've watched a lot of Mythbusters. I watched the first 2-3 episodes of Chucky over again because she wanted to watch them.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much about it. My viewing, my access to the TV has been razor thin this week, so I've mostly just ended up watching reruns of crap that I've seen 100 times before, and it's stuff that we've covered on the show before, so it doesn't really bear.
Maybe that's what you to say. It is hard to schedule TV when you've got a child and other responsibilities.
Well, especially when you have a
and that's why it's catch-up problem.
When you have a teenager who most nights does not go through to their bedroom until about 11, 11:30 at night, because it's the summer holidays, they can stay up late, don't care. But then that limits my TV viewing to, I'm tired, what can I watch for the next 25 minutes while I still have enough consciousness about me to actually enjoy? So then I end up like just finding a video of like a review of a film that I've seen 20 years ago on YouTube and watch that before I go to bed. And you know,
this is one thing I do miss about my more afternoon shifts on occasion, because I'd get back home sort of like after 10, 11 o'clock. My child is in bed, my wife is in bed. I'm not bothering anybody. I can put some of the TV on that I know that I'm interested in and no one else is.
Just wait until he's a teenager.
And then I'm just seeing it. I mean, he does like, I mean, that's why we watched X-Men as well. I mean, he likes the X-Men, he loves Spider-Man. So there's, on occasion, things do happen that are good.
You should try him on the films.
We've actually, that was the other thing. I mean, we have a child's TV. We have watched Cars and Cars 2 recently.
The thing about Pixar movies, and this is one, don't really talk too much about Pixar movies here. Yes, I have seen a fair few Pixar movies having a child growing up. Saw a lot of Pixar movies. The one thing I will say is there's just enough jokes in there to appeal parents, that because the studio, they must know, the writers, directors, the animators and everything, they must know.
Family entertainment. They'll slip the jokes in, the adults will get.
There's little innuendos or visual gags, like things in the background that the kids won't notice, but parents will sit there going, I saw that.
Yeah. It's like I say, we were watching Cars, and one of the things they slipped in is one of the cars turns up at the garage, and it's the doctor's garage, and the doctor's got the sheriff up in the air on the tire tracks, and then he's got something, a tube which is into the tailpipe.
Yeah.
As an adult, you'll get that. As a kid,
yeah, exactly my point. And that I will give the praise to Pixar for that there's just enough adult humor so that if you're a parent taking your child to the cinema, or even sat at home watching it on a DVD or a streaming service, there's just enough jokes that so you won't be bored as a parent. There's just enough humor. The kids will still find it funny because the characters laugh. We find it funny because we get the joke.
Yeah. It's like I say, that's why I love Shrek. I mean, I watched that as a child growing up, and my dad's laughing at bits I didn't get. Now, as an adult and a parent, when we watch Shrek, I'm getting what he got all them years ago.
If Pixar are the sort of, they're going, right, let's just slip in these sort of adult jokes for the adults, you know. Shrek's the one going, hold my beer. Shrek is the absolute king of that. I remember watching that with Cassie when she was younger, and I would laugh at moments and she'd sort of look at me like, why is that funny? I'd be like, I'll tell you when you're older. Wait until you're 15, 16, we'll watch the film again, then I'll point that joke out and explain to you why I find it funny.
then again, you might get it. You might get it yourself, and you'll
Well, at
laugh
that
and
point,
people get it.
maybe.
That, or if you don't still get it, then I might explain.
Right. Moving on with
Yeah.
the meat and to veg of tonight's episode. Yes, I did that hand gesture. But we are going to talk about a kind of a cult classic franchise, kind of hated at the time it came out. The studio didn't know what the fuck to do with it. The general public didn't get it. It was a very niche kind of cult fan base that is still going very, very strong to this day. And they do actually, I think, still have a yearly convention every single year. So I
I've
think
got some things in the background. Some
yes,
people might have got them.
I think we should just jump straight in, and we are going to talk about Firefly. Now, quick little disclaimer: we are going to mention Josh Whedon here. Now, there is a lot of controversy surrounding this gentleman. We're not going to talk about any of that. We are talking about the show specifically.
Yeah.
When we say we praise the writing of it, it is purely from a creative standpoint that you cannot deny. If someone's a complete dickhead, you still can't deny that their works of fiction are good.
Some sayings like a broken clock is right twice a day. Like once in a while, a fool will hit gold. Kind of thing.
Yeah. But we're not going to, like I said, we're not going to talk about the controversies around the dickhead.
Yeah.
Personal view on that one. We're just going to talk about the show and its spin-off film, Serenity. Now, I kind of stumbled upon this franchise and kind of fell in love with it. A friend of mine had a big ass folder like this, one of them zip-up CD ones.
Yeah.
Could hold like 60 odd CDs.
Yeah.
And they were full of, I don't condone this behavior, bootleg DVDs. And Serenity was among them. Now, I had never heard of Firefly at this point. Never heard of it. And I'd not long moved to Tamworth, was living with my friend Josh. It was the start of summer. We'd both finished college, so we had nothing to do. So we worked our way through this folder of films.
Yeah.
As many films as we could fit in on a day without falling asleep. Some days we'd get through like 5 or 6. Other days we'd get through 1 or 2, depending on the length of the film. And we sat and watched Serenity. And with the way it opened, we were like,
what's this?
Is this like a flashback to something we don't know about? And then all throughout the film, we just kept having these moments of these characters coming in. And I was like, I feel like we should know these people already. Yeah. Like, I feel like there's something missing. And of course, we've not long got the internet. So we jumped online, searched Serenity, and found that it was a follow-up to Firefly. So we immediately downloaded Firefly and we sat and watched it all the way through. And then we watched Serenity again. And everything made a lot more fucking sense all of a sudden. Because it is sort of standalone, but sort of picks up on the events of the one and only season of the show. So what we're going to do now is, because that was my introduction, we'll quickly cover your introduction of it, Lee. But for the sake of continuity, we will go back and talk specifically about the series first.
Yeah.
Then move on to the film.
So
that's how it's
I finished. I never watched all of Buffy, and it was Josh Whedon in his heyday at the time, obviously, because it's Buffy. He'd done Angel. I didn't watch every single season, unfortunately, due to scheduling conflicts with my father.
I was that bitch.
I was in a household where if my father came home, the remote control was his. That was it. So whatever's on the TV, it's his control. Firefly was one of these. It was advertised. I wanted to watch it because I looked at it and I believe it's still in the description. It's a Western. Meets sci-fi.
I was going to say on Wikipedia, fact checking the Wikipedia here, folks.
Yeah.
It is described as Firefly is an American space Western drama.
And that's the thing. It's cowboys in space.
Pardon?
It's cowboys in space. Now, the other thing about with Josh Whedon, he had seen quite a bit of the sci-fi stuff, and he'd obviously done Buffy, he'd done Angel, the supernatural stuff. He wanted to do something new, as far as I understand. And
I have pre-checked trivia on this.
Check that.
Because he'd done the supernatural stuff with obviously Buffy and Angel. He had done some sci-fi work before because he worked on Alien Resurrection.
There you go.
And he did also do, I think he was a screenplay writer on the very first Toy Story film. Which
may make sense with the next little thing I've sort of noticed. He'd noticed that sci-fi at the time had become sort of more utopian and clean.
That's what I was just going to get to. That's just what I was going to get to. He is kind of quoted as saying that sci-fi at that time had become a bit too squeaky clean.
Yeah.
Like you look at Voyager,
Voyager,
Nine, Stargate SG-1. Everything was all very clean and shiny, and everything kind of worked out in the end. He wanted it to be more gritty and real, and sort of referencing stuff I've read up online here. He did say he kind of looked at like being on the losing side of the American Civil War. You know, it's something that's not too much talked about in media, in films. Like,
no, it's not. I mean, it's like trying to talk about. I mean, it's like how do the Germans teach World War II, for example, or even World War I.
Yeah, so I get where he was coming from on that, like following a group of characters who were on the losing side
of a war,
of a civil war. Following those interesting characters, and it worked for me personally. I think it fucking worked.
I'm not sure. You might be able to check because you can get your box, but I think I read on the back of the box it sort of says it's like nine different characters' point of view about the same sort of thing. That's
it does. Again, it kind of says it on the back of the box, but it also says it on the Wikipedia. The general premise that set up for the characters was it's 9 different people looking at the same thing. So it's 9
different things.
9 different points of view. They're seeing 9 different things. And I love that. It's each character's take on the same situation. And again,
love that
for it.
I saw it advertised and such, and then the scheduling come on for it. I managed to pick up the first episode and maybe the second episode, but after that my dad was watching certain other things, so I never managed to pick it up. And it wasn't until years later I watched Serenity, and I love that, and I was like,
I will
in my head, this is to a show I wanted to watch. So I managed to eventually locate the box set, and actually watching the box set's better, because the other thing this thing suffers from is when they released it, they did not release it in the correct order. They only ever released one season, 11 episodes, and they didn't release them in the right order. On the box set, you can watch them in the correct order, the order it's supposed to be.
I'm going to give the quick backstory for the viewers who may not have seen this, because I've got it literally on. I scrolled and it ended up on the backstory part, so I will give you the quick premise. It says here, the series takes place in the year 2517 on a variety of planets with numerous habitable moons. We'll talk more about the lore in a little. That's literally the next section. So
that gets complicated.
But hold on, I'll get to that in a minute. Right. The TV series does not reveal whether these celestial bodies are within one system. Only saying that Serenity's mode of propulsion through space is a gravity drive. Each episode begins with either Book or Captain Reynolds providing the backstory. And here we go with the lore. Book's narration runs as follows. And I think this is the introduction to the first episode.
And it's Buck's the character, the actor being the late great Ron Glass.
We'll get into the
We'll get
character
to that.
in a minute. It goes on to say here, after the Earth was used up, we found a new solar system and hundreds of new Earths were terraformed and colonized. The central planets formed the alliance and decided all the planets had to join under their rule. You know, kind of a dictatorship, basically.
Dictatorship, right? Yeah.
There was some disagreement on that point, and I love that even reading that just in text form, you can feel the sarcasm, and that's what I loved about.
Disagreements about that.
That's what I loved about Buck, the dry sarcasm that was always on point. But anyway, digressing there. After the war, many of the independents who had fought and lost drifted to the edges of the system, far from the Alliance control. Out here, people struggle to get by with the most basic technologies. A ship would bring you work, a gun would help you keep it. The captain's goal was simple: find a crew, find a job, keep flying. And that, like I said, that's the intro to pretty much episode 1. That, if that does not catch your attention with the amazing voice of Ron Glass, you have no fucking soul.
No, you don't. The other thing is about that, it's like that explains the jarring nature of 1 minute they're flying a spaceship and the next minute they're on horseback. They are literally using whatever's available to get where they need.
Yeah. One of my favorite episodes is when one of Inara's old friends asks the crew to come and defend him. That for me is a full-on tip of the hat Western episode. You know, it's littlest whorehouse in the West kind of thing. She's
quite specific about that. No, that character's specific. She's a companion. She's not a whore.
Oh, yeah, you know what I mean?
The job title.
Vibe. It's that vibe it gives where they're fortifying it and taking up like sniper emplacements in the top of old bedrooms, and it's proper old West decor. I love that weird juxtaposition as well of the old West look with like the dresses and the general setting of the place. But then you've got these sci-fi weapons and spaceships coming down, and then even when they're on space stations, it looks like
watching a shootout. This is the other thing. I was watching a shootout earlier, because like I said, I've been watching the Meat of the Matter. I was watching the episode, and the shootout starts, and they're pulling out like old 6 style pistols or whatever works.
Rifle stuff.
You know, it's like they're doing the old actions of a Western sort of gun. But you can hear that there's a sci-fi twang to the firing mechanism.
It's those little touches. That's what I mean. It's those little touches where it's the perfect blending of the two. You've got this quite sci-fi looking gun. Like it hasn't really got a chamber for bullets or anything, but they still handle it like a revolver, or they cock it like a lever action. Right. I love that aesthetic. And again, this goes into the writing and the attention to detail. Where it's those little things that you might not pick up on your first viewing. But then when you realize that he's got basically a laser gun, but he's handling it like an old school revolver.
Yeah. And it's like not everybody's got a laser gun. Some of them they're firing normal like lead projectiles or whatever. Maybe the higher caliber or whatever. But
the one episode where they have to use Jane's big ass rifle gun, but they have to put it in a space suit.
That was one of the previous. That was one of the last. Yeah, like this thing only works in an atmosphere. So how are we going to get it to work?
They put it inside
an airlock
and then shoot it out the airlock.
And it literally puts it into a suit. They basically sacrifice an air suit so they can get one shot off.
Yeah, Jane played brilliantly by Adam Baldwin. Yes. But unfortunately, we'll get into this and then we'll talk about the cast, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, due to the studio not really knowing how to handle such a project, because they were like, how do we market this?
Yeah.
It's a Western for sci-fi nerds. Those two words shouldn't go together, but they do.
Yeah. It's a space cowboy. How do we get...
Yeah.
Do we talk to the guys into John Wayne and the likes of that, or do we sell it to the guys into Trek?
Yeah, like the studio didn't know how to
do we...
you know,
Anybody I've found that does know this stuff is like they do kind of fit into one of those two categories, but they get it.
it pleases both though. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
and that's the thing. It should have just been marketed to both.
But due to that, and due to a unfathomably daft decision to
Yeah,
air the first, I think it was the first 3 or 4 episodes out of
yeah,
sequence, originally in America. I don't
yeah,
know about here in the UK, but I know in America I think they showed episode 1, then episode 4, then episode 3, then episode 2.
yeah,
So everyone
yeah,
was confused as to what the hell was going on because it was meant to be a like Buffy and Angel before it. It did kind of follow that structure where each episode had a little bit of a thing that arced over into each other episode.
yeah. And it's like
So
so.
it was
I think
from
the
the
first few
start.
episodes as well, they're mentioning things that are going to obviously up and come, and because they're out of sequence, it's like,
Yeah,
oh, what? Yeah, and it just confused everybody as to what is going on.
yeah,
So there are a lot of viewership for that. And the ones who stayed were like they tried. That's why Serenity actually happened in the end because it was enough want for it that they thought, well, okay, well, push. I think the Serenity is basically based on the last few episodes because they were supposed to do 14, they only did 11, and they basically cobbled the last few together as basically Serenity so they could finish it off. So they got a rounded ending to a season, but they also obviously tried to rope in other things that would have come up in a season 2, I believe. And I can see Cali checking.
I'm double checking to see how many discs my
Yeah.
box set has. The box set has 4 discs, and if I
Mm-hmm.
remember correctly, it's 4 episodes per disc. Let me double check the amount of episodes here.
There's about, if I remember, there's about, like you say, I think there's about
Does
4
actually
episodes
say,
per disc.
does
I
actually
think the
say
last few, I think the last couple of discs are basically the
good.
special.
I'm
Go
checking.
on.
I've got it here. Number of seasons 1, number of episodes 14. I do think that when it first aired, it was only the first 11 episodes, and then when they reran the season,
They put the last few in.
the final 3 episodes were eventually aired. I think that's what you're mixing it.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, the DVD box set is all 14 episodes. It does say there is a section on here about unproduced episodes, and I read up about them, and I'm like, well, I'm glad one of them didn't get made because it would have meant something really, really bad happening to Manara, and I'm not even going to talk about it. I'll tell you when we get off camera. It's grim. It's fucking grim.
Yeah.
But
That may or may not be covered in one of the graphic novels because a bit like Buffy, there is like we said, there's a lot of material.
I've not read the comics.
Couple.
I've not read the comics that followed on after the film, so I could not tell you.
I've read a few, having owned a few, I've got a few.
But
I know good.
From what I've seen online, basically because the way the series ended, it could have been left. This was the general feeling. It could have been left and just let people make up their own imagination as to what happened.
Yeah.
But there was enough loose ends that they wanted to wrap up with a film. Well,
yeah.
What fans clamored for a second season. All the studios said, no, you're not getting a second season. So we said, well, what if I made it a film and we just said that's it.
That's the end of it.
And they kind of agreed to that, but they still screwed the pooch because honestly, Serenity, I don't even remember seeing it marketed anywhere. I think I saw one trailer for it before.
I saw, and it's in the memory. I remember watching Good Morning TV the one morning because you're going to school, and that was what was on.
Not me. I was busy sleeping.
And there was an interview, I believe it may have been with Summer Glau and possibly Nathan Fillion, and they sort of covered the fact that they'd got the fans had pushed enough to get. They wanted a second season. The fans pushed, wanted, but they didn't get it, and the actors actually wanted to come back and play and continue and finish that story off.
Yeah, there is a. We won't go too much into that right now because that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely a
So
thing.
they ended up with Serenity.
Yeah, yeah. But seeing as you brought up the cast, we'll go on to that and then we'll talk about the actual film Serenity because
The cast.
this is going to make you feel old, right? But do you know when? Do you want to know when Firefly originally aired?
Don't remind me.
September 20th to December 20th in the year 2002.
Ouch. Yeah, that
So, right.
that's over
That
20 years ago.
bombshell, with that
That's
bombshell, bear
yeah,
that
that's
in mind when we talk about these cast members. But we've talked about the cast, we mentioned a few names. Going straight into it, we have Nathan Fillion as Malcolm Mal Reynolds. To me, right, when I first watched Firefly, I was coming off the back of Buffy. Now, in
yeah,
Buffy, he played the evil preacher, Caleb.
yes.
I don't know what it was about that performance of his, but he was so hateable and lovable at the same
Yeah.
time as a bad guy. Like he was that perfect bad guy because you loved to hate him, and when he got his comeuppance, you actually felt like it was justified. Like the character earned.
He was that character you hate to love and love to hate. He
Yeah,
played fantastically in that, but he also Firefly really again fantastic character. And
I
then,
loved I
and he's probably the most nameable. He's done voiceovers, and you know that voice.
Destiny.
Destiny's Cade 6 was my favorite. Brilliant
He's done a couple of
doing by him.
done that a couple of TV series.
He's done. He did Halo as well because he's the sergeant of the ODSTs in
Not played it.
Halo. This is something I played. And I knew the voice. I was like, I know that voice.
But
And
yeah,
he played
he's
the
probably
ODST
quite
character.
he's probably the most well. There's a
He's
few names,
probably the most well known of this bunch.
but up next we have Gina Torres as Zoe Elena Washburn, second
Yeah.
in command, and I love how she is very much the straight man to Mal. Mal Nathan Fillion's.
He's like the straight soldier, the one that will follow the orders and do things.
It's
Whereas
not just
Mal,
that. It's not just that, but she's always very
straight face
serious,
about it.
even
Yeah.
when she's joking. And the only time, and I noticed this, I've watched the original series
Yeah.
a couple of times. The one thing I have always noticed is, although she's married to the pilot Wash, we'll get to him in a minute. Although she's married to him, you only really see her sort of emote, like laugh, joke, smile when she's around Mal.
Yeah, there's two. It's
Well,
Mal
in private with her husband, but
in private,
when
it's only ever in private.
let me get to my point. When it's around the rest of the crew,
Yeah,
it's only really Mal that when they're telling that story about the grenades in the apple to Book.
yeah,
You see her laughing and joking with Mal about the guy putting the mustache on his face and everything and all that. And then the next scene, she's straight faced again, very stern again. And that's what I mean. It's only when she's with him and they're talking about something in front of the crew that she'll let her guard down. Any other time, she's the straight laced one to Mal's more emotionally
chaotic.
charged. Yeah. You know, he's very hot headed. She's the cool, she's the calm one, he's the hothead. And I love that dynamic between them two. But moving quickly on, I always butcher the pronunciation of this name because my fucking dyslexia kicks in.
Yeah.
But as Hoburn Washburn, we have Alan Tudyk.
I think it's Dick. I think you've got it about right. He is like I said, I butchered that name plenty of times, so I had to try it again. Again, he turns up in the things.
He does. I liked him in he appeared in one of the Transformers films as like this German assassin guy who's really emotionally unstable.
And he's always playing this character who's similar to Wash, but you don't recognize him because he'll do it like he'll be made up.
The scene for me that made me fall in love with his character is where he's in the pilot's chair on his own and he's got the two dinosaurs. We shall call this land
is
our land.
my most rewatched. A little bit of tangent alert.
Curse
Right,
it.
tangent. It's one of my most rewatched YouTube videos. Right? This is our land, and we will call it our great land. I will call it your grave. Your sudden but inevitable betrayal. Yeah? I actually ended up with a Stegosaurus and a Tyrannosaurus Rex at my job at Pascal's up on top. They sat up on top above the pot wash area, and I would look at them and just howl with laughter anytime I felt down.
You know what, right? I think I'm gonna have to sort of,
brilliant.
I'm gonna have to get hold of that sound clip. And I'm gonna have to see if Violet will do that as a TikTok. It's right up her street. It's right up her street. Yeah. Maybe do it with a couple of the Predators instead, just for the fuck of it.
My son unfortunately had those dinosaur figures because he was intrigued by it. I think I'm gonna have to get some and put them up at the back of here. So watch for that when I guest appear. I'm gonna see if I can get T-Rex and Stego back because I love them.
But, yeah. So another good reason to watch the show. Up next, we have Morena Baccarin as Inara Sarah, the companion. Paint it up however you like. I look at it whenever I've watched it. Again, watched it a few times. I always think of her more of a futuristic escort because although she does meet with many people of different genders, God,
she doesn't get a high price.
Oh my God. Oh my God, a show from 2002 where somebody sleeps with both men and women. Shocker. But
she's quite a strong, independent woman.
But the way I've always looked at her role on the ship is bad comparison, but sort of like Troy on Star Trek.
Yeah, that's how I sort of got. It's like it's Troy.
She's sort of the counselor to the she talks to the crew individually whenever they've got problems, and she sort of gives them a slightly better perspective, and they go, "Oh,
yeah." She's always there to like sort of give the rainbow to the rain cloud.
Yeah. So, but I've always looked at her more as counselor / escort because although yes, like I said, she does meet with a lot of people of both genders. She even states in the show, it's not always sex with them. Some of them, it's just about spending time with her.
Yeah.
For some of them, it's massage. For some of them, it's just a piece of eye candy to go to a fancy dinner.
Oh, it's just I sit there and I listen to their woes and maybe advise.
Yeah, so I don't see her as a whore. I see her as, like she said, a companion, which I think is just in 500 years' time, that's just the word for an escort.
It's like if you want the added bonus of that, then you've got it there because you've paid. But if you don't want that service, you don't have to take it.
Now, we're coming up to one of my personal favourites of the show. Played fantastically, the dim-witted, heart of gold, does the right thing eventually, or, if they're slightly coerced into doing the right thing. It is, of course, the one who has a town named after him, the man called Jane. Jane,
man, myth, legend,
brilliantly by Adam Baldwin. And out of all the Baldwins, personally, my favorite, not just like actor-wise, but my favorite.
Yeah, you're getting a little hot.
Angel season 5, right? The final season of Angel. He shows up at the back end of it as like Angel's contact with the head office of Wolfram and Hart. He's built like a brick shit house, and he wears an Armani suit. Need I say more? And he fights David Boreanaz, and I'm just watching that fight at the end, like going, the only thing missing here is baby oil. But you get to see David Boreanaz bite him on the neck as well, which but that's Angel. That's not Firefly. But yeah, one of my favorite characters in the show. It's from the minute he puts on that fluffy woolen hat with the
Yeah, he loves that woolly hat.
he has some of the funniest lines because he's so slow on the uptake with things. Like everyone in the crew gets it, and then he'll say something because he's not got it, and he's the only one that didn't get it. And then he gets that moment.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, that's what they meant.
But he's low-key my favorite
We are,
character
of course, talking about Jane Cobb.
Jane Cobb, the man called Jane, the man with the girl's name, has a town named after him in an episode that is actually called
I nearly wore that T-shirt, but I thought I'd go with the Eddie reference here.
Of course.
Because I believe the T-shirt says something more thrilling heroics.
Right.
Brought to you by Jane Cobb.
Up next, we have the ship mechanic. Another name I know I'm gonna butcher. How do you pronounce this one? Jules Satai?
I don't know that one. Unfortunately, I'm not even going to attempt that one. I'm sorry.
It does actually have the character's full name listed here, which I did not know until doing research for this.
There's a full name.
Yes, is Kewinit Lee Kaylee Fry.
Yeah.
The ship's mechanic, and quite frankly, next to Jane, my next favorite character.
Played brilliantly.
Yeah, so innocent.
I think I like all of the crew, but she does stand out because I watched the episode where she turns up in a nice big frilly dress at this fancy party. She tries getting along with the posh girls there, quite quickly gets saved by an older gentleman who pulls her to the side, and she's got literally every single older guy there who knows their engines, and she's doing the engineering thing. That's a great one. That's a bad one.
The episode that really sold me on her being one of my favorite characters, sort of Jane, then her, it's the flashback episode where something on the ship has broken and they've all had to evacuate. Mal's the only one who stayed behind in hope of getting, waiting for a trade thing to arrive to hopefully get the parts to fix the ship. And it does sort of flashbacks as to how each member of the crew ended up on the ship in the first place. Because, slight spoiler here, in episode 1, it pretty much shows you how Bishop Brooke ends up on the ship, how the Doc ends up on the ship, and how his sister, River, it shows how episode 1 is those three getting on the ship. So you kind of know it teases
they're technically passengers that end up with a extended pass.
Yeah, they stay on longer than they needed to, basically. Yeah. But the flashback episode, the bit that sold me on her for a character is it shows you at first he's got a different mechanic. It's a guy, big beard, surfery looking dude.
Yeah.
He goes in to see about what he's doing fixing the engine, and you can hear someone boom, 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 bang, getting busy.
Bang, bang, bang. And he's like, what the hell is that?
Getting busy in there. He interrupts them. This proper girly girl with little pigtails in and a nice bright yellow flowery summer dress. He's pulling her dress up and everything. He's pulling his jeans back up. And she starts rattling off everything that's wrong with the engine. But
she's literally the Scotty of that universe.
Yeah, and Mal basically goes to the guy. He's like, how come you didn't know that? And he's like, well, I would have noticed it eventually. And he just looks at the guy and he goes, you're fired. Looks at the girl because he didn't know her name at the time. Went, what's your name? Kaylee. You're hired. It's just like, boom, you're off the ship. You're on the fucking ship. You know what you're doing. He clearly does not.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. And that's how she ended up on the ship. And I was like, you know what? As backstories go, that's one of the funnier ones I can think of. Like, how did you end up on the ship? I was fucking the previous mechanic. I knew more than he did. I got
the same thing happens for Wash. And I love how he gets on the ship because at the time he hasn't met what is going to be his future wife.
Oh yeah, and they don't like each other at first, do they?
And they hate each other at first.
And they have to rewatch
because that's the other question you're asking with only the short few episodes. Like, she's so serious, but he's a comic genius, and it's like, how do them two end up
But moving on, we have Sean Maher as Simon Tam, as we just spoke a minute ago, the Doctor, on the run from the Alliance, from saving his sister, River Tam, played by Summer Glau. Basically, a bit of a nut job, but as the series goes on, you find out why she's a bit of a nut job. She's basically been experimented on by the Alliance. And she's sort of like a highly skilled, highly trained assassin who's waiting for the right trigger.
Has psychic powers.
Yeah, who has mildly psychic powers. So again, there's a lot to unpack with this series and with the film that wraps it up.
There's a lot more going on, and if you do watch the film, it becomes apparent.
Oh, the action scenes that Summer Glau does in those are fucking phenomenal. It's like a ballerina. It's like a, excuse me, it's like a ballerina.
I mean the like I said, go watch Serenity. Yeah, don't mess with that.
Getting on to the last one now. It does have reoccurring cast, but we won't really cover that. We're just focusing on the main cast for now. This one hurts my soul. This one hurts my soul.
Yeah, the late great
Ron Glass playing as Durrell Buck, Shepherd Buck, sometimes called Bishop Buck. What can I fucking say? Again, in my top 3, absolutely loved his character because he was the moral
center. He was the moral center to that.
Yeah. And I will say this. I do love how the fact that some of the things when he butted heads with Mal, like that one time where he actually punched Mal and like was Bishop punched the fucking captain, you know. The shepherd, the religious guy of the lot.
Yeah, the one you would least expect. I mean, he's got the interesting backstory, and I don't want to spoil that, but because there's reasons why they might have not got along had they met a number of years prior.
Yeah, but we won't go into that. But yeah,
we won't go into that.
Unfortunately, Ron Glass is no longer with us, passed a few years ago. But his story is kind of wrapped up in Serenity. I'm not going to spoil it. I felt a little bit cheated by that after watching Firefly. I was like, oh, come on, you could have done so much more with him. But I understand the reasoning why it was done, because I actually had I don't have it anymore. I did have the comic book that kind of bridged the gap between the show and the film. It was called Serenity, Those Left Behind.
Yes.
And it's sort of
I'm still looking for that one.
It's sort of the connecting tissue between Firefly and the film Serenity. I think it doesn't end where the film starts, but pretty much not too soon after, not too soon before the events of the beginning of the film. Like, I think sparked a memory. I think it ends with them getting the call about the bank job that they go on at the beginning of Serenity.
So that would be the train job.
No, the bank job that they do where
the bank job.
That's where that comic ends. It ends on them getting the call about it and them sort of being like, should we do this? But you see them actually doing the train job in the beginning of Serenity. So it's kind of meets up, but unfortunately I sold that one.
Yeah.
I'm a cow. But,
because I'd have had that off you. That's one that's hard to get a hold of, that one. But
we are running a little bit pressed for time now, so we're just going to quickly cover Serenity. As we said here, it does sort of wrap up the events of Firefly. It does carry some story beats over, does ignore one or two. The Hans Blue thingy, that kind of... Don't forget about that. Don't reference that. Don't talk about that. But I do know that they did pick that up in the comic books. But mentioning the comic books, we're not going to go into them now. We will revisit Firefly and Serenity to talk about the comic books, because the ones that Lee has behind him over there, I'm going to borrow and read.
Not a problem.
So we will...
As long as please get them back to me, because they...
But here's the thing that I said earlier might hurt you. Firefly is from 2002.
Mm-hmm.
Serenity came out Let me double check here. In the United States, September 30th, 2005.
Yes.
That means next year it is officially
20 years old.
20 years old.
Yeah.
I'm kind of shocked, but and this is another thing. Again, the marketing for this was not great. I didn't really see any trailers for it. I think I saw like one, and that was just sort of one of those teaser trailers where it was like from the producers of Buffy and Angel, Serenity in theaters, then gone. Like you didn't even get enough time to like, well, what?
Yeah.
The budget for it was 39 million. The box office take, oh Jesus, this hurts to say this, was 40.4 million. So it literally made back what it cost to make it. No wonder it didn't get a sequel, even though it kind of ended.
That was the thing. They wrapped up quite a few story arcs from the season, but I think that was a bit of a long shot hope. They sort of go watch Serenity, and it kind of opens up the possibilities.
You know what, right? It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Evil Dead franchise, where they did the first two, and then it was a little bit rocky trying to get the third one done, but they did the third one, and that depending on this is where the controversy comes from with that tangent, people, but. Evil Dead 3 Army of Darkness technically has two endings. It has the US theatrical ending where he gets back to the present and everything's all bright and shiny and fine. And then there's the European version, which I originally saw, where he takes too much of the sleeping potion, wakes up 100 years in the future, and the apocalypse has happened. Right? So it depends which ending you go with. But the general canon ending now is he ended back up in his own time. And for years, for the better part of about 20 years, Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, and all the lot involved would constantly get asked by the fans, when we get an Evil Dead 4, when's an Evil Dead 4 happening? And they kept saying, we don't know. We're trying to get it done, blah, 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 blah. And it just never came together. But then when they finally did get it to come together with the Ash versus Evil Dead TV series, they were like, yeah, we're gonna round the story up all nicely for you. No, they didn't, because at the end of the 3 seasons, they left it on a cliffhanger again. And Serenity, for me and Firefly kind of keep doing that. The season kind of ended on a bit of a cliffhanger. Then we got Serenity, which kind of ended on a bit of a cliffhanger. So now, are we going to get more of it 20 years later?
This is the thing. I think it's been quoted on a number of times, because this is one of the things Nathan Fillion and a number of Summer Glau, the other characters in that, they keep getting asked, are you ever going to do another Firefly? And I think a lot of them have sort of said now, they haven't got long glass.
I think
it's not going to happen now, because I think they'd have to totally, unfortunately, reboot it. But they've extended it in the comic form, and that then we end up in a whole Star Wars problem with the legacy cut. And
I think for me, and this is just my take on it, I think very much like Buffy and Angel, I think that Firefly and Serenity are definitely a sort of little time capsule of that period where not everything was a mega hit, but it has its fans and they're loyal even to this day. And I honestly think that something like a space western like Serenity wouldn't really work today, because that itch has well and truly been scratched by the likes of The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, things like that, where they have that flavor, they have that vibe of it's Old West rules, but it's Star Wars tech. So I honestly don't think. I think if it came back now, it would purely be for the fans. Maybe because, as you just touched upon the comic books there, maybe an animated series with the original cast voicing their characters, maybe. Other than that, I honestly don't see it working.
I think, as you say, and my wife, because we were watching, Raven Rose was saying earlier, we were watching the actual live action. With the actors having aged now, they'd have to use way too much CGI for you to de-age them.
Either that or do a really convoluted explanation of why.
Like
It
it's
is.
20. It's and they'll be picking up too far down the line with the characters they've got.
Yeah, and the storylines that were
What about the middle bit?
well,
And
it's not just that, but storylines that were set up at the end of the film, 20
yeah,
years later, it's like, well, 20 years have passed. Why has this all of a sudden become a problem again now? Like,
where do you fill that gap? I mean, graphic novels fill that gap,
that's
but
what I'm
it's like
saying.
getting them in there and
I,
scratching that.
I honestly think that if we want to see a comeback of shows like Firefly,
That
Angel, Buffy, because we're dealing with characters that, and stories that are 20 years removed, the actors have gotten older. So if you want those same characters, especially with Buffy and Angel, because you're dealing with vampires and shit like that, you're gonna have to have
an
animated.
animated show, and
You
the
know,
benefit of having an animated show, and this might twig certain people off. But if you lower it down to the PG, what the Americans call the PG-13 if you lower it down just enough, like you can have the animated show, and then you get a whole bunch of and a new
well,
generation of fans.
I don't know, because the Castlevania series, the Castlevania anime, has done raving reviews.
Yeah,
I've not watched it because I've not played the game.
again,
Not a
that's
big
what
fan of
it's
the
on the
game.
list. That is so on the list. I
But
played the games. That's so on the list. But
yeah, but the anime, from what I've heard of it for Castlevania, is absolutely brilliant. So
yeah,
do Buffy, Angel, Firefly in that kind of animated
yeah.
style. Get the original actors to come back and do the voice
Because
cast.
then they can voiceover, and the age problem's no problem because you can
Exactly.
draw them from 20
But
years ago.
on that note, if we would we like to see a return of Firefly? Yes. Is it ever going to happen? Probably not. And if it does, can we please not bring back Josh Whedon to handle it because the man's a cunt? Personal opinion. Anyway,
Yeah,
on that note, I would just like to say a big, massive thank you. I kind of covered this last week, but again, because it's the season finale, got to do this. I have to do a shout out to Guy for putting up with me episode by episode and dealing with me being a big ass fucking diva most weeks. Thank you to Jimmy Lee Clifford for appearing on multiple episodes now at this point. Thank you to Gaz for the episodes that you have appeared on this season. Thank you to Tony Harris for last week's episode. Thank you to Jason Kerr for commenting every week, apart from this week. Well, last week, should I say. And thank you to all the subscribers and commenters and viewers and everything that you keep this channel going. I've said this on pretty much the end of every season that as long as you guys keep watching them, as long as we keep getting views, we'll keep making the videos, we'll keep finding subjects and things to cover and try and get more guests on and that kind of thing. So this is the start of our 2 month break. We'll see you mid-October sort of time.
And again, for me, thank you to everybody else. I am starting to get the idea of potentially doing something myself, potentially to relate to music. And yeah, it's great appearing on the show when you want me here for my particular knowledge or
Your
to
particular,
cover Guy when he's doing his gigs or whatever,
or he's on his Ollie Bobs.
or he's on his Ollie Bobs.
Yes.
So thank you, Guy, for giving me the space
Well,
on occasion.
so that has been it for tonight's episode, and that is it for this season. So we shall catch you in quite literally the fall of the year, and we'll see you next time. Mwah. Much love, everyone, and thank you all for watching. Bye.
Bye.